There are many things that strike fear into a person's soul. Failure, the unknown. Today we discuss the most feared thing of all. White women. Hi, I'm Kai, nice to meet you. A few weeks ago, I talked about one of my favorite shows of all time, Attack on Titan. Well, today I'm talking about my favorite show of all time, that being Breaking Bad. This show, I can confidently say, has no flaws whatsoever. I love pretty much every aspect of it, yes, even the fly episode. And I like to think that's a pretty cold take, considering how much praise the show gets. But I have seen an uncomfortable amount of people say that there is one big flaw in this show that just never went away, that being Skyler White. I have never seen a character in a show hated this much, which is crazy to me because there are way worse characters who have done way worse things that get less hate than her. And not only has she done way less than these characters, but she is also the victim in a lot of cases. So I'm going to showcase why the hatred towards Skyler is misunderstood at best and undeserved at worst. Meet the White family: Walter White, Skyler White, and Walt Jr. And for the sake of the video, I'm just going to be calling him Flynn if that's okay with everyone. The family can barely afford their mortgage. They're expecting another baby soon, and on top of that, Walt's been diagnosed with lung cancer. So financially, they are screwed. But don't worry, because Walter's former colleagues, Gretchen and Elliot, offers him a job at Grey Matters, which they describe to have excellent healthcare, which by the way was at the request of Skyler. But due to his pride, he refuses the offer. Hot take, but this is one of my favorite aspects of Breaking Bad. It shows that Walter always had an easy out, and he didn't have to do all of the terrible things that happened after that moment. Of course, he doesn't tell Skyler about this, because obviously, she'd be pissed, and rightfully so. I'd like to say that it was around that moment when Walter started hiding stuff from her, but that'd be ignoring that he hid the cancer from her in the first place. The point is, Walt starts hiding stuff from her. It ranges from, second phone? What second phone? I don't have a second phone, you have a second phone. To, hey, is it cool if I visit my mom for a few days? I totally won't die in the desert, it'll be fine, see ya. To, gas station. With my dick out? The more lies Walt piles on, the more stressed and paranoid Skyler gets. I mean, look at it from her perspective. Your husband is slowly dying. He gets upset when Elliot offers him a job, and he initially refuses the idea of treatment. And on top of that, he becomes more and more secretive with every little thing. So it's pretty easy to see why Skyler becomes more and more suspicious. Then she finds out about the second phone from Hank and Marie, and then she becomes more suspicious. If there's one thing you should know about Skyler, is that she is a very big stickler when it comes to illegal activities. She stopped talking to her sister for like a good couple episodes because of a stolen baby-sized tiara, and she confronted Jesse about selling weed to Walter, all because she cares about her family. She wants them to be safe. Her kids, her sister, her brother-in-law, and of course, her husband. So with him disappearing so often, including Holly's birth, of course she's worried about him. But again, with the more lies that's piled on, worriedness turns into annoyance, which turns to stress. She relieves this in two ways. One is smoking, while pregnant. This is probably like the worst thing she does. Like, what are you trying to do, give Holly a day one nerf? The other one is flirting with Ted Beneke, which, I'm gonna be honest, this isn't too bad. We'll talk about it later though. Eventually, Skyler finds out about all the lies Walt's been hiding. The second phone, the fugue state, visiting his mother, everything. And what does she do? Kicks him out of the house and divorces him immediately. Everything she has done to this point is 100% within reason, except for the pregnant smoking thing. I mean, come on. Again, be in her shoes. Most of the things that your husband has been telling you has been a cover-up for not just doing meth, but making meth. While his brother-in-law is a DEA agent, that job he took from his old colleagues, he's been paying his cancer treatment along with a lot of other stuff in the house with drug money. So now, if Walt is found out, it's over. They lose the house, their family gets broken up, their lives are basically ruined. So yes, of course, she divorces him. But because of this, Flynn starts hating her now. Because in his eyes, she just kicked out his cancer-ridden dad. For no reason. And it's not like she can tell him what's going on, so now she has to deal with her former husband being a drug manufacturer and her son hating her. Ain't that a bitch? But don't worry, it gets worse for her. When Skyler wants Walt to fill out the divorce papers, he goes, nah, and breaks back into the house, forcing himself into the family again. When Skyler calls the police, he makes himself look as cozy and loving as possible. And Skyler is basically forced to keep quiet and let him back into the family. What's she gonna do? Flynn is getting more attached to his dad because he's dying, and if he gets found out at any point, her life is forfeit. So what does she do to get back at him? Insert the clip that says she fucked Ted.
I fucked Ted.
This, without a doubt, is the most controversial moment in the entire show. But hot take, I don't really see an issue with this. Walt refusing to sign the divorce papers and refusing to leave the house after being kicked out? Skyler is basically held hostage. She can't do anything to Walt. The reason why she slept with Ted can be interpreted in multiple ways, but personally, I see it as a way that she can actually hurt him, like down to his core. It's like her saying, "You don't want to leave? Fine, you're still not my husband though." And she continues to have this affair with Ted as a form of escape, but it's still not an escape because Ted is also doing illegal shit, and she has to keep quiet about this, otherwise the company will tank. So if you still don't see how she's a hostage, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. After the affair of her and Ted ends, she actually starts to support Walt. Again, this has become very controversial with her character, as people call her hypocritical, but I honestly see this as some kind of Stockholm syndrome, where the hostage starts falling in love with the person that tortures them. You see, I know all about this because I am a Sonic fan. Skyler starts helping Walt launder his money, because she basically figures out that if he gets caught, not just him, but the entire family falls apart. Now again, I have to stress that she's not perfect, as she does do a lot of stuff that ends up helping Ted, which to be honest, does not deserve any sympathy. And on a side note, that happy birthday scene made me want to die. I am counting that as one of Skyler's flaws. She gives Ted over $600,000 to pay off his debt, which to be fair, she thought if the IRS digs into his business, they'll soon dig into her business, which would then lead to them finding out about Walt's business. She is also the one to create the gambling story, which is used to explain why Walt got kicked out of his house in the first place. You may think she's just as bad as Walt for doing a bunch of illegal activities too, but the main difference between the both of them is that Skyler is doing it to protect her family, from the IRS to Hank.
Someone has to protect this family from the man who protects this family.
Too bad she can't protect her family from the cartel, because as soon as Hank's life is in danger, and finding out that Walt was involved in the bombing of a nursing home, she becomes terrified. She realizes how much of a monster her husband is. Her family will always be in danger when he's around, and she feels powerless because, like I said, she can't do anything, except now she's done some illegal stuff herself. So she just becomes depressed, realizing that the only way her family will be safe is if Walt dies. And so she waits, and waits, and waits. At some moments I understand why people dislike Skyler. I don't agree with it, but I understand. But it's impossible for me to not feel bad for her in this situation. Eventually, Hank and Marie find out, and they threaten to take the kids away from her. Well, what do you know? The family's falling apart now. Skyler was right. Ain't that a bitch? Eventually, Walt's arrested, and she has to tell the whole truth to Flynn. And then after a quick drive home, Skyler finds out that not only did Walt break out of his arrest, but he also murdered Uncle Hank. Why'd I call him Uncle Hank? What's wrong with me? And for the first time in the series, she physically fights back. And she loses. Then Walt steals Holly and runs away, leaving Skyler breaking down in the streets. Now let's look at her at the end of the series. Her husband is gone. Her brother-in-law is dead. Her sister wants nothing to do with her. Her son will never look at her the same way again. They had to move to a new apartment due to the DEA seizing their old house. She had to get a job as a taxi dispatcher due to the DEA seizing their assets. And she is now a shell of her former self, now addicted to nicotine. Man. Ain't she a bitch? I get why people disliked Skyler in seasons 1 and 2 because she filled as an antagonistic role. Not as antagonistic as Tuco, but she was put as an obstacle for Walt to overcome. But as the seasons go on, I don't understand how people can view her as anything but the victim. There are many points in the show where Skyler is abused mentally, verbally, and at one point almost sexually. But yet, anytime I see anyone talk about this show, they always talk about how Skyler is the worst character, even more hated than the Nazis. You thought this image was a joke? I wish. And the main reason everyone hates her? She doesn't let Walt do illegal stuff. It's crazy that a show that's filled with terrible people, the most hated character is a woman who's slightly annoying. And it's even crazier that 3 of my favorite shows are like this. I think Skyler is an important aspect to this show. Every main character in this show is morally gray for some reason. Hank when he's trying to catch Heisenberg, Jesse when he's trying to support himself, Walt trying to take control of his life, and Skyler when she's trying to protect her family. She breaks bad for a good reason, and I think she deserves less flack for this. And of course, I think Anna Gunn played an amazing role, and she does not deserve half of the shit that everyone gives her. You're probably wondering, who's my least favorite character? Uncle Jack. It's Uncle Jack. He's the worst antagonist, he's not interesting, he's a racist. Why is the woman more hated than the racist?